Okay, this training session is going to talk about how to input floor joists and the various settings that go along with that in Forte. So we've already talked about the job tree and the level settings. So once you get that all set up, you choose what type of member you want to size from this ribbon up top. So we're going to choose a floor joist for this example. And we're going to use the training manual that's posted on iLevel Learning. We're going to be sizing floor joist FJ4. It's just a simple little cantilever with a bearing wall on the outside edge. So we're going to go ahead and input our member information. Just type in here. In this case, I'm just going to call it FJ4. You can name it whatever you want to. If you've created more than one level in your job tree, you can change what level this member belongs to. You can also put in member notes. Or something like that. You can put in specific deflection criteria. Say you have a member that's going to be supporting some brick or masonry. You can change this deflection criteria to L/600 to prevent your brick from cracking. You cannot put in a deflection criteria that is lower than code minimum. Okay, once you input your general information, you click on the Span and Supports tab at the bottom of your screen. And you have different options here as to how you input your dimensions. The default clear span. You can change these radio buttons up top to out, and you'll see the graphic kind of update. If you choose custom, then you can specify down here in the grid what you're dimensioning to. So looking at our little example here, we have a 2-foot overhang and a 16-foot span, and that goes from the outside there to the center on this side. You also want to be very accurate with your bearing length information and your support information. Forte will fail members that do not have adequate bearing. So I want to make sure that you put in as accurate as possible your information here. 3.5. Bottom bearing is going to be plate on concrete. You're just going to choose whatever is appropriate for the member that you're sizing. This material is going to be fur. This is going to be LEL. So in this side it is going to be space mount. You do want to be very, very accurate as well with the material that you choose as your support material. If you have a hanger or a flush condition like we have here, it's going to look at whatever we specify as the supporting material in order to choose the appropriate hanger for nailing. And you can choose your accessories if you want. Whenever you have a hanger connection, you get this information link, and this allows you to specify if say your supporting member is shallower than your joist. You can put that in here. You can also put in a skew, a hanger skew if you have one. Also if it's concealed flange or not, and this is going to size the appropriate hanger for you. So the more accurate you are with this input, the better off everything is. So next we go to the Loads tab. And there's a couple different ways to input loads. You want to be very careful and pay attention to the type of load, the units specifically that you're inputting here. So we have this residential living area. This is our floor load. So our on-center spacing is going to determine how much load gets applied to each joist. So we'll notice that our load is in pounds per square foot, so it'll be loaded up appropriately. But we also have a point load out at the end of our cantilever, so I'm going to add a load. I could use point pounds. If I knew my joists were going to be 16 on center, I could figure how much wall weight should go at the end of each joist. But since I don't know at this point what my spacing is going to be for my floor joist, I'm going to choose point PLS. So that way, when I change spacing, if I look at different spacing scenarios, each joist is still going to get the appropriate amount of wall load out at the end. So I can put in the location where this load is going to occur. I'm just going to put it at the center of that exterior wall. And I'm going to have the 80 pounds. We'll call this wall load. 80 pounds per lineal foot of wall load right out at the end. You'll see the little arrow indicating the point load in the graphic up top. Now I need to add some roof load to this point load as well, so I have the ability to copy the load. And I'm going to change my values here. 150 and 40. 100. So if I have 10 foot of roof load, and my roof loading is 40 pounds per square foot live, 15 dead. And load, and that's a tributary width. Trip. Okay, now I've loaded my joist up appropriately. A couple other tabs down here. You can go to the Holes tab. You can add a hole. It's the same rules if you're used to TJ beams and putting holes. You get 3 holes per span maximum that for table size. You can choose circular, rectangular shape. Just go with a 8-inch hole, and we'll put it and put in the middle. And there are rules if the hole gets too close to bearing, or if it's too close to a point load, then the joist will be failed as appropriate. We're going to talk about location analysis when we talk about sizing a flush beam. Floor performance is the TJ Pro rating. You have all these modifiers that affect the feel of a floor. The handy chart here that shows you what the Pro rating equates to as far as customer satisfaction. So we'll just go with the defaults here. It looks more around, I don't know, maybe 45. You can put in a particular number. If you don't care about Pro rating, you can hit this little check box, and it will allow a 0 Pro rating for a joist. Also change your decking material here. The attachments, if you're using any strapping on the bottom of your joist, you have direct applied sealing. This is I think a 5-point. It'll make a 5-point difference in the feel of your floor if you have a direct applied sealing. Also, blocking between floor joists, perpendicular partitions, and if you have a poured floor over top. If you have a particular scenario that you're always using, so you're not using a 3/4 deck, you're using 1 1/8, you can say that this is the default. The next tab is your product selection tab. This is where you can select, and you can multi-select using your control key, what scenarios you want to look at. You can use these filters over here to uncheck if there are certain things you don't want to look at. If you right-click on the words, you can unselect all. Very quickly get to the products that you're looking for. 10s and 360s. 22, 24. You can also put in a custom spacing and custom depth for a rectangular sections. You can do custom depth. Depending on what type of member you're sizing, you may or may not see some certain categories appear. Like if you're sizing a post, you're not going to see a TJI as an available choice because TJI cannot be used in a post application. So you will see some of these fluctuate and change depending on what member type you're designing. And once you choose whatever it is that you want to consider as an option, you go to the Solutions tab at the bottom here. And Javelin is going to give you what it feels is the most economical solution. So here we have a 14-inch 210 at 24 on center. Gives you all your design values up top. It does have a pro rating of 41, so that's pretty good. You can also choose different hangers. You have a little checkbox that says you can only show solutions that pass design. You also have the option to print this screen. So if you're talking with a customer and trying to talk about different scenarios, you can actually print this. Let's say if you're going back and forth about do you want to go with a 14-inch floor or would you rather stick with the 11 7/8 floor, you can print this grid here. You can create a PDF or you can print. So you can see very quickly the wood volume, which doesn't always equate to price. It's just the greater the number in the wood volume column, the more wood fiber you have in that floor system that you've designed. It's a good gauge. Most of the time it works out to being the same price comparison, but not always. That kind of depends on logistics and what the dealer is keeping in stock in your market. And then you have your member report, which is the same as your calc sheet. And it has all the notes that you're probably used to seeing. It also shows the reactions at each support. This is where the notes show up. On that first tab from back here on the member tab where we put in those member notes, they show up there. I need to go back here. If we put in some of this job information, and then we come back to our report, some more fields that show up. So now we have product application design. All the information has been provided by Bob the Builder, and we also have job information when we input it on the job tab, on the job property. And that concludes creating a joist calc in Forte.